let's just get right into the thick of things. This is a 2022 Chevrolet Blazer. It's been out since the 2019 model year. I know there's a 2023 Blazer, which has been updated, facelifted, mid-cycle refresh, that will be available in only a few short months. But let's just really focus on the Blazer itself. I can imagine people over at GM, at Chevrolet, designers, product planners, and whatnot, scratching their heads. Well, they probably aren't doing that anymore, but essentially trying to figure out why the Blazer isn't all over the place. Why roads are not littered with Chevrolet Blazers. I mean, it's a mid-size, reasonably attractive 5-seater SUV with a decent trunk that has a very, well, as far as I'm concerned, historically significant name. But I mean, if we just go down the list quickly, Edge, Murano, Sorento, Santa Fe, Grand Cherokee, I mean, all of these models are, well, most of these models crush the Blazer in sales, especially the Grand Cherokee and the Santa Fe. Now, even the 4Runner, I think, outsells the Blazer. And that's a dinosaur in comparison, getting away from it a little bit. The thing is, in my mind, however good and interesting the Blazer might be, it is wedged in what GM figured was a white space at some point between the Equinox and the Traverse that was so narrow, in fact, nearly non-existent, that, well, people are not interested by the Blazer. There isn't, okay, let me explain, right? Chevrolet Equinox, by far the best-selling SUV at GM, at Chevrolet, more specifically. And it's not exactly that much, well, how can I put this? The price gap between the Equinox and the Blazer isn't that great. And size-wise, I mean, the Equinox, the Blazer, and then there's the Traverse, which isn't that much more expensive than the Blazer and shares a heck of a lot, physically, components I mean, with the Blazer, the Traverse and the Blazer. So that very, very narrow gap never really needed to be filled. And then, well, on top of the Traverse, there's the Acadia and even the Enclave, if I was to stretch it, right? I mean, I've seen a lot more, many more Acadias on the road than Blazers. The thing is, this is still an interesting SUV. It is value-ish packed. Design is the design. But in my mind, and when I think back to the last Traverse I drove, in my mind, the Traverse is a very average SUV in its segment. And a lot of the things that make it so average are here also. So these elements, the pricing, the sizing, the white space that doesn't exist really is what's hurting the Blazer in my opinion. As always, I go on and off in all kinds of directions. But as you know, in the following video, if you've watched at least one other video, thank you for doing so. I'm going to do a little bit of a walk around and point out a few things that are probably mostly obvious because I don't want to do a 45-minute video about the styling and the interior, and then we'll take it for a still quite pleasant drive, and I'll try to explain, at least in my words, in my opinion, why the Blazer just isn't doing it for mid-size, 2-row, 5-seater SUV buyers. Let's just get into styling right away. I mean, it's always a delicate and very personal thing to describe styling. But when I see a Blazer, I mean, what comes to mind is that, well, 80% of the design budget went into the front end to mimic and copy, well, the Camaro. I mean, that's what it is. It's really just that simple. And, well, there was no follow-through in the way the remainder of the Blazer is designed. I mean, it's relatively bland. Yeah, there's a nice line that kind of sweeps up towards the top of the D-pillar, but the rear end is very, you know, it's fine, but I mean, it's not novel, it's not aggressive, it doesn't really, like I said, follow through with the front end. That could be one small reason why the Blazer isn't picking up as well as it should, as far as sales are concerned, of course. Pricing in the US, $33,400 for the base LT, all the way up to the Premier, $45,195. That's with the V6. In Canada, the LT starts at $37,498. That's with the front-wheel drive and a 2-liter turbo engine. And the Premier with the V6 all-wheel drive is $47,598. Included in the base price, look, Sirius XM, 18-inch wheels, 8-inch display, Wi-Fi hotspot, so on and so forth. And, well, I'm going towards the front, but I should really focus on the rear for a second. This is actually a Blazer LT, so it's the base model, but it does have, obviously, as you can tell, a few options. One being the V6 engine with all-wheel drive. The other being the Redline Edition package. Now, that's pretty easy to figure out what it does, and it kind of blacks out everything, adds red lines here and there around the name. Red line, you can actually see that, sorry about the face, the red line, I think that focused in there, you know. So it's an appearance package that is actually kind of nice. I mean, it does highlight a few things about it, but it doesn't really bring anything more to the table. My tester also has the LT package with the power hatch, the roof rails, and a bunch of active safety features. So it's well equipped. It has almost everything you could possibly want for a grand total of about $44,500. So that's, by saying that price, I thought of the Honda Passport, which it too is essentially a sales flop because of the Pilot, right? Kind of Blazer Traverse syndrome, we'll call it that. I just thought of another one, the Outback. Yeah, that nasty wagon outsells the Blazer by a catastrophic amount. Catastrophic to Chevy, of course, to wagon lovers, nothing to do. Well, it's all good news, I suppose. Look, it's good looking. I've got nothing more really to say. Power hatch, as I mentioned, part of the LT extra package. That opens up to 864 liters, which in this segment is barely average. I mean, a lot of the two-row midsize SUVs push close to 1,000 liters of usable trunk space. I mean, there is some storage under here, nothing spectacular, but look, that's plenty enough for, say, your average Canadian family of 4. Speaking of average Canadian families of 4, right? My 2 kids' seats, there's plenty of room back here, to be quite honest. I mean, there's plenty of leg room for them. The sight lines are not too bad. I mean, they're getting taller, so it's less and less of an issue. What is nice, though, is that the seat backs do recline, so that's a lovely touch. So I can recline the seat by just 1 notch so that the seat will sit flusher on the bottom and on the seat back. And then the interior. But this is okay, right? So the driver's, I think it's 8-way power seat with power lumbar. That's superb. These are the basic cloth seats, which are soft, but still very, very comfortable. I mean, I'm enjoying them a lot, especially when it's hot like it is, or has been for the last few days. Yes, it's dark colored, but it's not like leather. It won't cook your buns. That's always a neat feature. Very accessible height adjustment for the hatch. Look, I mean, this is still better than what you'll get in a Ford Explorer. The way the materials kind of come together, a little bit of contrast stitching business going on here. The plastics are actually nicer to the touch than they are to the look, which is usually the other way around. But then, you get in, and I'm being harsh here. I'm gonna remove my mask. I'm being a little harsh, but the dashboard is, oops, apologies for that. The dashboard, let me zoom out a little bit. It's very ordinary. I mean, it's very straightforward. I like the 8-inch display. It sits below the uppermost part of the dashboard, so visibility is not hampered in any way, shape, or form. The system is easy to navigate and to work. You have your buttons there, but there's something about the way it's presented. I don't know. You expect this Camaro-inspired SUV to be far more flashy and pizzazzy, but it really isn't. But the thing is that it's very functional, right? I love the gauges. I think that's like a 4.2-inch display down there. So you have everything you need, but it's not special. Not that other SUVs are special, but I don't know. It's a little bit of a letdown. Oops, let me zoom back in. There's your drive mode selector wheel. So as always, you're in front wheel drive unless you activate all wheel drive, which I still find very strange. But yeah, that's it. So time to go for a drive. So I think I just remembered that I forgot to mention that as part of the Redline package, you do get 20-inch wheels. And I'm pretty sure you can see it when I zoom in onto one of the red lines on the wheel that it's a 20-inch wheel. Point is that the ride quality of the Chevrolet Blazer is, I think, its best asset as far as the driving experience is concerned. I mean, it's far plusher and far more supple than I expected or even remembered. I drove this, 3.5 years ago for the first time. Maybe it's closer to 4 at this point. And that's despite the 20s. They, in no way, shape, or form affect how comfortable and smooth the Blazer is on the road. Powertrains. 2-liter turbo is your base engine, which is available with all-wheel drive. 228 horsepower, 258 pound-feet of torque, which are very familiar output numbers. I would have loved to have driven a Blazer with that engine, but this has the 3.6-liter V6, extremely well-known engine in GM's lineup for the last many years. So 308 horsepower, 270 pound-feet of torque. I mean, it'll help you get out of your way, and kind of sounds good, you know, as engine revs build. It's not exactly as smooth as Toyota's 3.5-liter V6, which is essentially on its way out at this point, or Honda's 3.5-liter V6. Output numbers are lower on the Japanese models, but whatever. The engine is not a problem, certainly not a problem. Same for steering. I mean, it feels fine. I mean, even through the drive modes, everything is fine and okay. The power is okay. The ride quality is definitely, like I said, the highlight. The 9-speed automatic transmission. Well, that's where things kind of get a little bit dicey. When it's in gear, it's seamless, super smooth, glides from one gear to another, or will drop a number of gears if you want to do something stupid like I just did. The problem is when the gear is in off or in between things, that's when it gets really, really weird. In a 3-point turn, for example, the delay between the transmission going out of D into reverse and from drive to reverse is excessively long. I mean, yeah, you'll get used to it if you buy one, own one, and drive one, but I can't tell you how often I went from D to reverse on the throttle as I would in any other vehicle and found myself just revving into nothingness or worse. In fact, sometimes so slow is the engagement into reverse that the vehicle continues to roll forward for a few moments. And then there's the on and off throttle. It can be extremely rough, and I'm only in 2-wheel drive. I'm not in sport mode. I'm in the most normal, standard mode possible. And if you gently dip into the throttle, the transmission will kind of knock into gear or drop into gear. Well, I was extremely smooth on the throttle, trying to demonstrate, but obviously it's not going to happen. But it did just a few moments ago. So that would be the only dicey aspect. But if I step away from all that and just consider what the Blazer does, everything is very average. Not special, except for the ride quality. But it's not better than, say, what you can expect in the Subaru Outback, because it's a thing now in this segment. I mean, there are few that are more comfortable, but it doesn't stand out that much compared to the segment. The bottom line really is that this is a good mid-size 5-seater SUV. But as I tried to explain, because it doesn't give you much more than what you get in an Equinox, or is not cheaper enough than the Traverse. It doesn't, and it doesn't do anything. It doesn't have a huge trunk like, well, the Passport, or it doesn't have a, high-powered engine like the 2.4 turbo in the Outback. Is the thing. Right? Anyway, point is that it just falls smack in the middle, just like the Traverse. The Traverse has the advantage of being bigger with more or less the same money. It doesn't stand out. The front end is the only thing that really stands out. And, well, because design is an on or off thing, apparently most buyers prefer, well, are off about the design. It's not a selling point. It's good, but it's just really average. And I've said this about a lot of Nissan products in the past, and consumers love that stuff. They eat up these Qashqais and Muranos. Well, not the Murano, but the Qashqai and the Rogue. But they won't eat up the Chevrolet Blazer. Go for the Equinox or Traverse. All right, apologies, I'm done.